This is Professor Twilight, and I'm doing a special video. It was requested actually, and this request is to have the lowdown on medical herbal plants. So let's see, we'll start with a little bit of history. So, about 70 years or so, which is a lot of years, humans have relied on plants to combat a range of illnesses, from colds to malaria and so much more. But just how does all this work? Well, I'll tell you. So, what exactly is so good about plant-based herbal medicines, and how can they be better than biomeds? Biomeds are meds that are created in a lab, like penicillin or albuterol, or many things. Okay, so these are good questions, and I'm here to answer them the best I can. So let's break down the chemicals found in plants. There are active constituents, or chemicals which actively help the body, and there are several of them, of course. And then there's inactive constituents, which are inactive chemicals that still help the body. Right now we're going to go into some active chemicals such as phenols. Now, there are many types of phenols. So well-known examples are salicylic acid, or your acne cleansers, and acetyl salicylic acid, which is aspirin. Really cool, huh? Of course, aspirin is man-made. It's a biomedicine rather than a regular, normal occurring medicine. And phenols can even be complex sugar-containing glycosides. But what do they do? That's all nice and all, but that doesn't tell me what it does. Okay, so a phenol fights an infection in a plant. So by virtue, they're anti-inflammatory, meaning that they fight inflammation, and antiseptic, meaning that it cleanses the wounds. Phenols awesomely also repel insects. So if you're going to make a plant-based insect repellent, use a plant with phenols in it. Another one is volatile oils. Now, they call them volatile oils, but we know them better as essential oils. And of course, if you use them in man-made products like perfumes, it makes your perfume smell good, right? You can also use them as, candle burners, all sorts of things really. But what else do they do? Okay, well, they're also, hella healthy, being that let me get back to my page here. Okay. They are mostly made up of monoterpenes, which are molecules that contain 10 carbon atoms. Tea tree oil, for example, is highly antiseptic, while sweet gale oil is very good for repelling insects, as is lavender, rosemary, and anything really pungent smelling that we might like, but bugs don't. You can distill them, like for chamazoline, which is found in German chamomile. It is anti-inflammatory, and it's also anti-allergenic. So the good thing about that is if you have an allergy to certain things, you can use that chamazoline and you won't have an allergic reaction. Resins are the sticky substances that come from plants, like, for example, tree sap. The tree sap is often linked with essential oils, of course, and gums, but they're not volatile. So, they're an essential part of the plant, but they're not it's not like if you milk a rosemary or something, which you don't milk a rosemary, but let's see. Our next constituent actively is a flavonoid. Now, let's take a second here. So, an example of a flavonoid is, so you get a lemon, and it's beautiful and yellow, and you peel it and it's beautiful and white and yellow inside. The skin is not blemished, the fruit is not bruised, and you're like, oh, this lemon is so good. I'm going to put it in my tea. Okay, that's great. That's a flavonoid. Flavonoids basically are the pigmentations that you find in yellow and white plants and flowers and fruit like lemons. They do have a wide range of actions and many medical uses. For example, they are antioxidants, which is good for you. They also are useful in maintaining healthy circulation, which you're like, oh, well, I have poor circulation, so my skin gets red, my feet swell, whatever. Well, then open up a can of lemon juice, or peel a lemon, or something like that, something with flavonoids and polyphenolic compounds. Let's see. Some flavonoids are also anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and they protect your liver, which is really, really neat, because the way that, we are today, we need all the help we can get, let's be honest. Okay, so let's see. Flavonoids such as hesperidin and rutin, which are found in buckwheat and lemons, strengthen your capillaries and prevent leakage into the surrounding tissue, which is really awesome, because if we had weak capillaries and leaking, blood and whatnot into our body, we would eventually die. Let's see. Isoflavones, which are notably found in red clover, are good for women who have estrogenic issues. So what an estrogenic is it's something that helps produce estrogen, basically. And so they're looking into using these flavonoids, isoflavones, to help with menopause issues, which is good. Okay, so our next active constituent is a tannins. And tannins are produced by a greater degree or lesser degree in all plants. There are some that have a lot of tannins and some that have just a little bit. So basically, a tannin, you can tell by what it is it has a harsh, astringent taste when you ingest it, but they are good for insect repellent and grazing animals such as deer, sheep. So if you want to keep them out of your garden, plant some astringent plants like that and they'll know. So, okay, a tannin, what is it? Well, a tannin is a polyphenolic compound, meaning that it has many phenols, and they contract or estrange the tissue. So what they do is they bind and precipitate proteins, meaning that they tighten the skin, which is what they use to tan leather, is a type of tannin. They also are good for bleeding and checking infection. Like witch hazel is a well-known astringent or tannin, because it tightens the skin and it helps heal. So there's that. Let's see. Tannins are often used to tighten up over-relaxed tissue like varicose veins, to dry up watery secretions like diarrhea, and to protect damaged tissue such as skin problems resulting from eczema or a burn. Oak bark, if you have an oak tree, the bark and black catechu are both high in tannins, as is witch hazel, as I stated earlier. Okay, so we've gone over 4 good active constituents, and we still have a few more to go through. So our next one is proanthocyanins. That's a big word, right? Yeah. So basically, proanthocyanins are what color things red and purple. and blue, of course. So blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, things like that have proanthocyanins in them. They are also a polyphenolic compound, but they are related to tannins and flavonoids because, of course, they do give you a color. So what do proanthocyanins do? Okay, they are powerfully antioxidant and free radical scavengers. And basically what the free radical scavengers mean is that they go in, when you consume a fruit that is high in proanthocyanins, they go through and they eradicate any toxins that you might have in your body, which is why they are antioxidant. They also protect your circulation from damage. And that's really important because the circulation they are most effective for is your heart, your hands, your feet, and your eyes, which you need all of those. Of course, you can live without your hands and feet, but of course you need your heart, your eyes, and so on and so forth. Blackberries, red grapes, and hawthorn all have really high qualities of proanthocyanins, which is good. So our next one is coumarins, and these are also present in biomedicals, such as certain blood thinners, like warfarin, I believe, and excuse me, and Eliquis. But they also come in many plant species, such as celery. Celery has a very nice level of coumarin in it. And what coumarin does is that they keep your blood thin, while furanocoumarins, such as bergaptan, found in celery, it's a different type of coumarin, stimulates skin tanning, and kellen, found in visnaga, is a powerful smooth muscle relaxant. So, theoretically, people with a pale skin tone like myself could benefit from eating celery and so forth to stimulate skin tanning. However, the one drawback to skin tanning is that too much sun exposure causes skin cancer. So maybe it's a good thing I don't eat so much celery. Okay, so our next constituent is called a saponin. And basically the reason that it's called a saponin is because they are like soap. When you get them wet, they make a lather, which, you lather up your soap, you stick it in the water, and bam, there's bubbles. Well, it's pretty much the same thing for a saponin. You don't lather it up, but you stick it in the water and it makes a lather. Okay, so they come in two different forms, steroidal and triterpenoids. And the structure chemically of a steroidal saponin is similar to that of many of our own natural hormones. For example, estrogen and cortisol. And of course, a lot of the plants containing them have a marked hormonal activity, which wild yams were the progenitor of the birth control pill, which is really neat. Of course, birth control pills are a biomed, and they do contain levels of steroidal saponins. And let's see, triterpenoid saponins are more common, like licorice. I know many of you are like, ew, licorice, gross. But, it's an acquired taste, of course, but licorice is really helpful for the body. And, of course, cowslip root, which you can use to make cowslip wine, I believe. But they're less hormonal. So, basically, what you would use these for is like an expectorant, or if you're coughing up mucus, like to loosen it and help get it out. And of course, it helps you absorb nutrients. So either way, they're really, really good for you. Okay, our next active constituent is a quinones. Yeah, there we go. And they are the main active constituents in herbs like senna, which you, of course, can, I believe, use to color your hair brown, and Chinese rhubarb, both of which are stool softeners or laxatives. Of course, you have to be careful with laxatives because the definition of a laxative is to cause the bowels to painfully contract, which isn't cool. And most laxatives are biomeds, meaning they're created in a lab. Very rarely do you use, a natural herb to relieve constipation. Licorice also helps with that in children. Okay, so they are an irritant laxative effect. Once you take an anthraquinones, you wait 10 hours and bam, you have a bowel movement. But the good thing about anthraquinones is that they make your bowels, they make your bowel movements liquid, meaning instead of a big, hard, painful crap, it's a less painful, not so hard, nicer experience. I'm sure you're like, oh my God, Twilight, stop. And I'm like, come on now, it's got to be said. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay, so our next one is a cardiac glycoside, which is where you're going to find your foxglove and so on and so forth. Which... Okay. Well, guys, I'm going to pause this and take a short break, and I'll be back.